I was muted. What a great way to start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to HOSTility here on the line. It is October 3rd, 2025, 6 p.m. Central Time. I am Arden Hart, and today, y'all, we are speaking to MamaMephistopheles, or Mephi for short. She is a trans woman and an activist working here in Texas. I first discovered her just a few months ago while I was doom scrolling on Instagram. Came across this girl who was testifying at a legislative hearing and was laying it down. And I immediately got super excited, realizing, for one, she's here in Texas and doing work here, but also knowing that someone like her was showing up to represent our people at such an important juncture of politics. I knew I had to reach out and get her on the show right away, but as I clicked on her name and profile to message her, I was like, man, this profile picture is clicking in my brain. I know I've seen this girl before, and it turns out she was actually a line viewer. So I am super excited to have her here. So let's bring on, welcome Mephi to the line. How you doing?
Hi, y'all. I'm doing fantastic. It is Friday. It's almost the weekend.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into too much of the questions here, I would love it if you would just tell our audience who you are, where they can find you, and how would you describe your work, what you do.
Hello. Well, I am, as Arden said, MamaMephistopheles, and that's my username pretty much everywhere. I'm mostly on TikTok and Instagram. What I do is I talk about Texas politics, I talk about trans politics and trans rights, and I also do some muscle mommy content as well. Just as a little bit of a fun thing, going to the gym is just my hobby, and I like sharing that with the world. I yell at Republicans a lot. That's really been my primary project lately. And from there, I have been able to expand in a bunch of different areas. And I'm really excited to talk with y'all about how that whole process works.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, your content's definitely been taken off lately. It's because despite the fact that I know you are also involved in Lux's community, despite that, you showed up on my algorithm completely unprompted. It wasn't even it shared you on its own page or anything like that. It just was totally unprompted by the algorithm. So you're definitely catching sparks there, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even on Facebook, and people keep sending me links to these videos of my own testimony that's on Facebook, and it's got hundreds of thousands of views, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, I love that the message is getting out there,
Same. And it's clearly because, like I said at the beginning, you're really laying it down. I think you're great at what you're doing, and you're definitely a great speaker in those environments. You're killing it. So I guess I would like to know kind of how you got into this work, because when I think of atheist activism, right, I think a lot of that really blossomed in the South. There's huge concentrations of atheist organizations throughout all of the South, probably because of how restrictive and culturally religious we are down here. And it really pours fuel into the resistance in a lot of ways, because I think a lot of us grow up in conservative households and communities and know firsthand what the repercussions of that are like. So yeah, I guess I'm curious what your relationship to politics is that you got to where you are today doing these sort of hearings.
Well, I don't think that my story is particularly unique. I feel like I was just a trans person coming out, figured out my stuff, started to explore the world and see everything in color again. And it was at about that time that the country just decided that it hated trans people for no reason. Mm-hmm. So going from there, it obviously results in people, pardon my phrasing. When people come at you, you want to go at them back sometimes. It's frustrating, it's difficult. People, you get exposed to a lot of different political realities when you suddenly enter into a marginalized group as well. That's a kind of a unique trans experience there. And I just kept on getting frustrated with it. I originally made my TikTok to promote my OF, but I was like, I can just do anything on here. So I was ranting about politics. And then next thing I know, people are listening. So it got to this point where I was talking about it, but, there's what are we going to do about it, Because I don't know about you, but the amount of energy that I feel right now and the desire to get something done is just about ready to boil over, And so I looked up how we can start doing things and just tried to see how people were saying to get involved. Mm-hmm. And then I saw this video a while back of testimony actually in Montana for bills.
Yep.
I believe it was something Erin Reed posted. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are familiar with her. She's an excellent reporter for Trans News. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I live 2 hours away from the Texas Capitol. Why don't I go do that?
Yeah.
And that's basically how I got into the space. And from there, it's a lot of meeting people. And that's how that's your in,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that you got into that because I think there's a lot of people who are in that same position, who are the person who's sitting there thinking, God, the things are reaching this boiling point. It's overwhelming me and I want to do something about it, but I just don't really know where to channel that energy. And that's really part of the reason why I wanted to bring you here today. Cause I think, we preach a lot here about how important it is to get involved in your local politics, your state politics, your city politics and all that stuff. But obviously I work a ton. I am at the line almost all day, every day. And sometimes, and so I'm not always practicing what I preach the way I maybe used to when I was younger and had a little bit more flexibility in my time like that. But I think a lot of our audience is in the same position that you were. They really want to get involved, but the process feels complex and intimidating. And so, I would love for you to talk about kind of what that process was like for you as you were kind of taking those first steps and where you went first. What was that process like for you?
Absolutely. If you're in the audience right now and you just see all the news and you see everything that's going on and maybe you pay a little bit of attention to what's going on in your state or your town, then you are who I was a year ago. Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing about this path is that your expectations, whatever they are probably focused on the wrong things. Just to be a little blunt about it. It is easier than you think it is and harder than you think it is at the same time. Mm-hmm. So the important thing to know is that your greatest resource is going to be the people who are already there in that space. And that means that one of the biggest barriers to getting really involved in activism is going to be your networking ability. To borrow that corporate line, it's not what you know, it's who you know, which is really annoying to hear sometimes, we're making nepotism into activism. But that's the thing about word of mouth networks and on-the-ground organizing is that a lot of it doesn't happen online. A lot of it happens face-to-face or in private group chats, It's people who know other people and have people that they can call when it's time to do things. For me, the process of getting involved was I went to the Capitol to testify, and I just started talking to the other people who were there. Because the thing is, when you're the first person going there to testify, you're also going to be there alongside the people who are repping the ACLU chapter of your state. You're going to be there alongside the people who are doing the equality organizations there. You're going to be alongside the people who are doing mutual aid in your area. You're going to be alongside people who help the homeless, people who help immigrants. Those folks they are not just doing those things in some sequestered corner. They are also going and putting their voice out there, because the people who are putting their bodies on the line to move against awful things are going to be the same people who are using their voice. That's a bridge that they've already crossed. And their experience, they want to lend you their experience. So much of activism is getting other people involved in activism. They absolutely want you to come up and talk to them and tell them things. And it doesn't matter if you're socially awkward. It doesn't matter if you think that you look ugly. It doesn't matter if you think that you're not experienced enough to be in that space. You don't need any special qualifications to be doing this. You don't need to be a community leader. You don't need to be an influencer. You don't need to be a politician or someone with a particular degree. And your set of skills can be useful no matter what they are. But you don't really need much, because if you just care about human rights, then at the end of the day, there are always going to be things that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're saying about how, you know, the sort of communities form around activism in local areas. I think back to when I was living in Rhode Island, and I was definitely more involved, showing up to counter protests and, like, you know, various different actions and hearings and stuff like that. It was always a lot of the same faces. You know, sometimes that was the only place I saw these people, but I could reliably know, like, oh, this guy's going to be there every single time. He's going to have his camera and he's going to be capturing everything that's going on. And that's, like, super cool. Or, like, there was a bunch of guys from the John Brown Gun Club that was every time, every event, they were there ready to protect people, which was, like, super cool. And I think kind of like you were juxtaposing that to sort of the online thing. And I guess I'm kind of curious. Like, I feel like back when I was doing a lot more of this in-person stuff, there was kind of a sense back then that the online world was the online world, and it could help. It was a useful tool, but it wasn't the real world. This was the real world where people were doing stuff. Like, these are the people who are actually involved in, like, making change and, you know, getting the stoplight put in at that dangerous intersection in town or something like that. But more and more, when I'm hearing sort of the legislators in these hearings or, you know, in these positions, a lot of what they bring sounds like terminally online stuff, and like the only thing you could get by, like, having your brain completely corrupted by perpetual Twitter addiction. And so I guess I'm kind of curious, like, do you see that when you're there testifying? Like, I see it when I see, like, the other side testifying at these bills. I'm like, oh my God, I've seen that Twitter account. Like, I bet you I know that person for that. Yeah.
I mean, we've straight up had conservative influencers coming onto the floor, you know, spewing out their talking points. But it's the legislators who are definitely very online at this point, right? There isn't much left at least in the Texas legislature, of the, like, older sort of generation of Republicans, because if you live in Texas, you probably remember Abbott doing the school voucher thing back in 2023. Well, between that session and this last session, he made enormous effort to oust any Republicans who blocked him on that, which means that we have this whole new wave of people who are essentially influencers first and legislators second. So when I go in there, I'm seeing a lot of these same talking points. And that's also part of my project, you know, like, on the old rules. Some of the other activists that I work with disagree with me on this, but I think that being able to put out the message, being able to push back and fight and be, you know, really getting in there and giving it to them, getting your hands dirty, is just as important as trying to convince those legislators with touching personal stories. Those are good too, but these folks, it is a power struggle. And part of that power struggle is the conversation. And that means that if you can wrestle them to the ground and make them look bad, then you are helping your cause. If you are, you know, and that is part of why I've been posting my testimonies, is because sometimes people feel like there's an amount of, like, reasonable doubt for these people. But the fact is, if you go in there, if you make them aware of what they're doing, if you say it directly to their face, they are out of excuses.
100%.
Yeah. And that's something that I think that a lot of them don't want to reckon with. They are happy to ignore us. But the thing is, like, you can go in there and you can testify, and then you can spread that message. You can spread that. You can spread your show of support for your community, because a lot of this stuff, it feels very closed doors. But like with you coming across my videos online, you know, a lot of people don't realize that they can just go and yell at the government directly.
Yeah.
It's getting that message out there is, if you can be seen doing it, you can also inspire others to. And that's what I hope to do when I post my testimonies.
I think part of the reason I suspect why your testimony has gained so much traction is because I think you're saying like people maybe have aversions to posting it or sort of trying to take the online trajectory with it. But like you're saying, we're kind of competing in an arena here for the conversation, and this is where that is being had, and clearly where a lot of them are looking to for their ideas. But also, I think what I see in your testimony in these videos is it feels very sincere to me, very authentic. It's like you are there passionately speaking your mind to these people for a pure reason that isn't related to social media, and then taking advantage of the fact that we live in the digital age and you can film it and post it on social media. Like, I don't get the impression that you are doing sort of what a Marjorie Taylor Greene does, where she shows up to a hearing, 2 hours in, gets her little bit for the camera, and then leaves early. Like, that's not the impression that I get when I'm watching these things. So I think there's a lot of authenticity in what you're doing and in your voice and in how you present it. And I think that's really resonating with a lot of people that, they're like, oh, wow, she is just showing up and yelling at the government to treat her like a human being, and like maybe that's something I can do, because man, I'm fucking sick of just sitting here stewing in it myself.
I'm glad that that's coming across, because I do worry about that. People getting the idea that I'm just like doing it for clicks. But we're talking about human rights. We're talking about our ability to exist as people. I don't think that there is much of I don't even know how one might show up inauthentically to do that, because at the end of the day, if you're fighting for human rights, you're fighting for human rights.
Yeah.
If you care about human rights, that comes through in your opinions and your words.
Yeah. And I think conversely, when you're seeing these, sort of professional Heritage Foundation, like grown in a lab test tube creatures that come to testify in opposition at these hearings, that does read to me as, at least when I hear it, super authentic. And, there's probably a certain element of that is like the bubble that I'm in. But it reads as inauthentic to me, because fundamentally what you're advocating for is, you're like, hey, listen, I know what we're doing is going to lead to the loss of life for a group of people, is going to lead to struggle for these people, is going to lead to brutality and like incarceration or things like this. But let me tell you why it's actually acceptable that we're going to do that. And like, the second you have to show up in person to put your name and face to why you think it's okay to treat people poorly, suddenly that just drips with inauthenticity, as far as I can tell. No, I really...
Within the legislature, they like to do this thing where on these most unpopular bills, like every time I have shown up to testify against an anti-LGBT bill, it has been massive crowd of people who are here to defend our own human rights. And they're 3 invited guests that always get to go first. And like 1 or 2 people who just really have a hate on for trans people.
Yeah.
There's this one, we call her Denise the Shark Lady. She's very funny, because every time she gets up there, she's always saying like she's trying to do the sex gender like equivocation, but she always goes to using sharks for her example.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why.
She really likes sharks, I guess.
She might have like a fear of sharks.
Which to be fair, I relate to. I'm afraid of the ocean. I'm afraid of all the creatures in the ocean, including sharks. But I definitely don't use them to justify taking rights away from people. I am curious though, like when you are at these hearings, do you have any experiences like interacting with the legislators, or like is there any back and forth that you get from? I know I've seen sometimes they're just like on their phone through the whole hearing, just kind of seemingly trying to get through it because they have to. But I'm curious if there's any interactions, like, I think the one that got on my feed from you was you were talking about if trans women are forced to go to men's prisons, like what the risks of that mean, the implications of that, risk of SA violence against trans women being so astronomically high. Is there any like twinkle of like justification that they try to put in, like where you can kind of like see the guilt behind their eyes, or is it really just a sort of soulless commitment to their mission?
I think with that one in particular, it was interesting to me because I believe in that one, it might have been a different one. I called out one of the people there who was on his phone, and he didn't even look up. You know, these folks, they're there to sit through it pretty much.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you go to testify, there is often the worry that, oh, they're just not going to listen to me. What's the point of me going? But there is a political calculation that politicians make that is extremely important. When you do anything politically active, if you call your representative, if you go to testify, if you show up to a protest, a politician looks at those actions and they see every person there as representing X number of other constituents who will punish them at the ballot box, right? One person calls them maybe about a law that they're passing for the state. Then they might think maybe 10 people or 20 people also disagree with that there's a ratio there. People who share your opinion, but just aren't doing that action. They aren't driven that far, but they will vote against it. They will punish that person, and because they ultimately dislike that. And so if you show up to testify, the more engaged that action is, the more difficult that action is, the more people you're counting for. Your voice is always outsized. And that's going to depend on the specific calculation is going to depend on the politician making it. It's going to depend on what level of politics you're at. But the general rule of thumb is the smaller your politics are getting, the more outsized your voice is, the more power you as an individual person have. So when you go to testify, you're just getting a clip that you can use to help spread a message. Maybe you are making it clear to other people that these folks don't care. And I think that also translates. But if you just got up there and you talked about anything at all, okay, if you just said, I really don't like this bill, this is dumb for 2 minutes, not providing many reasons, you just dislike it, and you go on the record as being against it, that is still part of the calculation. That is in the numbers, right? And that is something that a lot of organizations will use. Like there was the bathroom bill, SB 8, if I'm remembering it correctly, had, I believe, 400 or so registered people against that bill and like 1 or 2 for it. These ratios are also powerful things for us to use, and it's part of the political cost that these politicians need to be factoring in, right? Because maybe they don't budge on this particular issue or the next one, but maybe on the third one, they're like, okay, I've gotten enough pushback. I've had people yelling in my face about my last 3 bills. I need to tone it down so I don't lose in my purple district, you know? Or if they're in a deep red district, they say maybe going this far hurts my chances if I want to run for a wider seat.
Right. I think I would be really curious to, I think it would be so helpful for sort of a dose of hope, some hopium in the community, to see some shots of, I don't know what exactly the rules and restrictions are for what you can and can't film in these spaces, but the collection of, 100 people testifying against a bill versus the 3-4, and kind of like exposing like, hey, they have like 3 corporate people who they flew in here for the specific purpose of testifying against this bill, or for this bill, and all these people authentically showing up to protect our community. Like, I think those kinds of things are really influential to people and can really give them hope that, like, to remember that, when you spend so much time online, and I know trans people sometimes have to by necessity. There's a lot of communities that are hostile to us, and you can find a lot of community online, but you also end up getting exposed to some of kind of the worst actors against this stuff. And I think a lot of the time what we're finding in the actual communities is that most people are largely indifferent. They kind of, they maybe have some opinions about sports or something along those lines, but for the most part, they are not really interested in the government policing the lives of other people. I think most Americans are
Oh,
sort of
absolutely.
libertarian in that sense. And so, yeah, I think that could be a really cool thing to just blast in people's brains. Like, hey, remember, this is what the ratios we're dealing with are when we're at these hearings, even in Texas, because, Texas has this national reputation that even here, people are showing up. And, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of us who can't
Well, that's
move. There's a lot of us who can't escape. Like I've been thinking about it, but there's another part of me that wants to stay and be with the people here and defend the people here and know that you guys aren't getting abandoned. But
Yeah.
it's hard to juggle that.
Because for every one of us who might be able to move, there's going to be more people who aren't able to. They're trapped here by economic factors
Yep.
or family or things like that. But these red states, there's a reason why the myth of blue Texas comes up every election cycle, is because Texas is like a 55-45 state, and sure, it's reliably 55-45, but when people who only pay attention to Texas once every 4 years see those numbers, they're like, wow, Texas is so much bluer than I thought.
Right.
And, that's the thing about a lot of red states, is that when Republicans take power, they rig the system to stay in their favor.
Yeah.
We are heavily gerrymandered, as, we had that giant fight over the redistricting just recently. We have some of the most hefty voter suppression here, but the people here generally don't support fascism,
Yeah.
And even a lot of the folks who are disaffected, barely engaged, maybe even like Trump voters, they don't want to be living under a fascist authoritarianism either,
Mhm. Yeah, I think for a lot of Trump voters, there's the hardline MAGA, but I think the more generic was Republican is now kind of MAGA by consequence voter, who I think represents a good portion of Republican voters. I find that for a lot of them, they're bothered by trans people in the abstract from things they've heard, but that every individual trans person they meet, they're actually cool with. And that person's one of the good ones. And it's somehow short circuits when they actually know a person. They don't put the two and two together that oh, maybe they're all okay. Or, most of them are probably okay. So I do want to say real quick, this is a call-in show and we're going to get to calls here shortly. The number is 720-619-2288. If you want to call in, you want to take issue with something that you generally hear trans people advocating for, or you want to debate God and religion, we're happy to talk to you guys on any of those things. If you are MAGA and you want to call in and defend some of this stuff, feel free. But before we do that, I did kind of want to maybe do something a little bit more lighthearted and kind of, I was talking earlier about the community that I knew in Rhode Island who was very involved in activism. It was one of my best friends was kind of, she knew one of the people in there, and because I knew her, she invited me, and kind of what you're saying, it was who I knew in that sense. But I think there's also, with the social anxiety, a lot of people who are resistant to coming out and doing these things because of the social anxiety of it all and feeling so overwhelmed. I kind of would just love it if you could speak more to the sort of community element that grows behind these activist movements in states and cities. Because I think that is one of those really beautiful things that again, even if you only see them at every political action, it's really cool to know oh wow, there are some people who are really here fighting, and yeah, I would just love it if you could speak to that a little.
Absolutely. I mean, you get in there and it is often going to be a lot of the same people, and they are looking for folks to get in. These are some of the most wonderful and accepting people you are ever likely to meet. It's scary getting out there. It's scary going there, but that is what these folks are there for. It is our job to help get other people involved, and it's our job to help keep other people safe, when you're going to the Texas Capitol, there are people there who will be your bathroom buddy if you're worried about being in a bathroom with a Republican. There are people who they'll buy you lunch if you have the money to make the trip there, but not enough to get yourself some food. There are people who will help you write out a testimony beforehand if you don't know what to say. People want to help each other, and then you make friends with these people because they are generally believing in the same things that you do. If you just like want to have community, if you want people that you know that you can rely on, who aren't just sending internet hugs, but are there, who are doing the action, you can go there and you can find probably the most reliable bedrock people in the entire state for meeting material needs above and below ground.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Really wonderful.
So I hope even if only one or two people there in the audience tonight is finally pushes them over the edge where they're ready to go out and start doing their activism.
Absolutely.
That is a huge win on my book for tonight. I see there's 613 concurrent viewers right now. So I think definitely at least one of you, hopefully it was this was the last push you needed, because we need more people doing what Mephi is doing and really getting out there and making our voices heard. So yeah, if this resonated with you,
it feels like jumping into an abyss, but there are people there to catch you, and you just get into the space and you do what you can do. Like, let 1,000 flowers bloom, because maybe you don't have good speaking skills, but people need to pass out food. Maybe you're a good speaker and your city council doesn't really have a lot of people who are talking to them about this stuff. When it comes, I just, can I go over just a couple of like specific things with legislation?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah. So it's not just testifying when you get there. There are lots of different actions that you can do. There is what's called dropping a card, which is registering your opposition or support of a bill, which you can generally do at whatever system they use to set up testimony. In Texas, it's a kiosk, but it'll vary from state to state, I'm sure. You can drop red and green cards in Texas, which is once a bill is going to the floor, you can leave these like slips with your reasons why you think a representative should vote for or against a bill. You can also do lobbying, which most people know lobbying as the legalized bribery that happens at the federal level, but you can just go around to your reps' offices during the legislative session, talk to their staffers, talk to the reps, build relationships with them. That political calculation that I mentioned earlier, it gets doubled and tripled when you're talking about somebody that this representative knows personally, that this representative trusts. There are folks that I know who are just retirees, or folks who are maybe on disability, so they have time to just like scoot around the Capitol all day and just talk to reps, talk to staffers, build those relationships, explain why a lot of these things are bad. Because, a lot of those folks, they don't necessarily have the ability to understand why certain things are like as terrible as they are. Some things are only surface level understanding. Some things are, it's just not their area. There is a rep here in Texas whose main focus is on stuff for veterans, but she listens when I talk to her about like trans politics, because it's just not an area that they're knowledgeable in. And you can talk to all the people in your life about these issues. A lot of folks, the barrier between them and being politically active is knowing just how bad things are.
Yeah.
And if you're scared to maybe go to the legislature or to put your profile out there like that, to put your name out there, there's always stuff going on in your neighborhood. I guarantee there are going to be folks, you look for them in your LGBT activism organizations in your area. You find their representatives at the Capitol, maybe. If you go to, there are these events that happen in a lot of different cities called Reclaim Prides, and those are usually put on by mutual aid organizations, and they do things like the food and clothing for people. If you go to your food bank, people there are probably going to know other people. If you go to like pro bono legal firms, even, they're going to know people. It is about meeting the people who know the people who are doing the actions. And sometimes you can just organize the actions yourself. if you got a group chat of like 10 people who are all care about trans rights and can move on a moment's notice, you can get as much political activism as 100 people. You can have an outsized voice if you can just get moving and get in the space. Don't worry so much about knowing if 100% of what you're doing is the most correct way to do things. You just get out there and you do, and then progress comes after.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, I would love to move on to take some calls, and then we will be reading your super chats after the calls. So any super chat of $5 or more, we will read out live. But until then, we've got some people on the lines here. Let's start with first Celeste. Celeste, she, they in the US has a question about social transition. So, Celeste, you are live on the line with Arden and Mephi. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing really good.
Awesome. Hey, we're getting a lot of background sounds, including some feedback. Are we on speakerphone or something?
Hold on, let me unplug my headphones real quick.
I'm not hearing her.
Oh, I know what's wrong with that. Well, we'll call her, gets that sorted. I will, sorry, we just changed some of our audio stuff, so I'm trying to, oh, really?
We wouldn't be really leftists if there were not technical issues.
So true.
Can you guys still hear me?
I can hear
That's
you
how you
now.
know it's legit.
I don't think Mephi can
good.
hear you yet. So give me a second while I figure out.
No worries.
I think I know what's wrong. Let me do that. Give us some chat now, caller, to see if she can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, I
There
can
we
hear
go.
you now.
Cool. Awesome. All right. What's up,
How are you
Celeste?
doing,
What's
Celeste?
going on?
Nothing much. This is actually the first show I've been on, and I think ever. I'm really excited and I'm also really nervous to be on the line, I'm not going to lie. I mainly had a question for you guys, since you are both trans like me, in regards to what's been going on in the current political sphere, in terms of a lot of it being anti-trans legislation. And the question that I had in regards to social transition is, what is the advice both of you, either of you, would give to somebody like me who has only been through a small portion of social transitioning? I've only been through the name change, pronoun change, and all that. But I want to get it legally changed. But there's also the fear of, if I do, with the FBI and Trump trying to label trans people as a terrorist group, that fear resides in me, and doing the legal portion of changing my name and everything, and having that be governmental records essentially makes me fear a little bit for my safety, in regards to what would happen if I did change my name legally, as they're trying to label trans people as terrorists. And the advice you would give to people like me who are afraid to do that, but are so eager to do that.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Yeah, Mephi, jump in.
So I think that with the fear of law enforcement coming after you, I will say I believe a lot of it is a paper tiger. I think that they are not as capable as they might seem of just going after every single trans person in the US. I think that they understand that they are running up against free speech constituencies. Goodness, that's the word. People generally don't like having their freedom of expression. If they just started attacking everybody who changed their name, right, regardless of gender marker, if they just started going after folks who changed their name to something that they thought was a gender change, then they're going to get a lot of false positives. Way too many. I don't think that they have the infrastructure, nor really the care, to go after every single one of us. I think we are more useful to them, honestly, as a scapegoat, as an ethereal thing, rather than us as the real people, because, if they start putting out images of poor white women getting attacked, by the Gestapo that they're sending out there, it's also going to cause them PR problems as well. But I understand if you are scared of being labeled as a terrorist, it's a whole thing. But a lot of what Trump is doing right now is he's blustering as hard as he can, putting out as much bravado, putting out as much false strength, trying to project strength instead of being actually strong. And I think that the real danger should be considered from just people around you. Are people around you likely to hurt you? Are people around you likely to make an issue? And that's where your primary safety concerns should be. But another thing is also, if you legally change your name and, even if you aren't able to get your gender marker legally changed, if you're doing something that doesn't require you to submit a gender marker, you're also less likely to out yourself. So you are protecting yourself from that danger as well, which I might argue is more important. But ultimately, it is going to come down to a personal judgment of what you believe your risk factors are. If you are someone that's maybe has a security clearance or something like that, I could imagine that they might pay more attention to you then. But otherwise, I don't think that they are super duper interested in going after people on that granular of a level.
Yeah, I think I do want to hear your response, Celeste. The only thing I'll add is that I think one of the key words in that security memorandum was that these are indicia or like indicators of violence. So none of them should be individually on their own grounds to go after individual trans people, like as Mephi just said. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, Trump has flouted every norm. And so I think it's good to kind of like when we were at the beginning of COVID, the whole watchful waiting approach. Like, I want you to be aware, be paying attention, but don't overextend your, your self-censoring for this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in response to Mephi, that did calm my anxiety a little bit, I will admit. I don't really check the news often, primarily because I'm an anxious person as it is already, and checking the news on the daily or checking updates on the news on the daily just fuels my anxiety at times, but that does calm it a bit down. Will there still be that fear for a little bit just due to the Trump administration in general and what they've done towards minority groups? Absolutely. But knowing that like the odds of them going after individual people rather than trying to like fear monger essentially it's a little bit more of anxiety lifting than I was expecting. And I do thank you for that. And about the people around me and everything, I do have quite a lot of people around me that I even talk to online, that I have in person, that are very accepting of who I am. I've been out for over 4.5 years now, and they're all very accepting. But the place that I currently am, because I live in Iowa, the place that I currently live in is a very much red-heavy state, and that does contribute a little bit to the fear of getting like randomly like jumped on the street. But at the same time, it's just like we're in America where anything can happen, and I might as well not hold my breath when it comes to just the ongoing fear of people around me. I might as well just live my life to the best I can with the people around me that support me and that love me the best I can, and not allow that fear to control my life.
Absolutely. Amen, that is a really beautiful way of putting that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think it's good to be reasonably like taking, measures to keep yourself safe, but like, don't let them steal your joy. Don't let them stop you from doing the things you love. Like, yeah, you said it perfectly. So hopefully that can help you to have a little bit more confidence going about your day.
Mm-hmm. It definitely will. And I want to say thank you both for just giving me this advice, and like especially like telling this to the general audience that's listening, because I know there's a lot of trans activists in the chat, you two included, and I feel that this has opened the eyes for a lot of trans activists and even potential some allies who might not have known a lot about certain issues in regards to trans people. So I do thank you guys for doing what you're doing, because you guys, and I'm going to admit this because I've been watching y'all for like 6+ months now, y'all do amazing jobs. You really do.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
I take all the credit. The line owes me everything.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Celeste. Best of luck. And, if you have anything else you want to call back, we would welcome that. So you have a lovely rest of your night, okay?
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
You too.
All right. Good first call. All right. So
Oh, sweet.
let's see. Looking at the list here for some of our options. We could talk about gender and sex and the way we talk about them, social versus biological. There's someone who says they want to do more activism, but they're in a rural area, a rural conservative area. And somebody says, I want to talk about persistence / I think desistance is the auto screener, rates of trans kids. Does any of those jump out to you? You sound really...
I'd love to talk to the person who wants to get more into activism.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it. All right, we're going to talk to Fiona. Pronouns are she, her, in Minnesota. Lives in a rural area and wants to do more activism. So Fiona, you are live with Arden and Mephi. What's going on?
Hi. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
I'm doing great. How are you?
Getting through.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I work with the state. I'm on the council of LGBTQIA2S plus, and per state level, like at the Capitol, it's fine, and it's been great activism in that part. The issue being, in my area where I live, I am in a deeply conservative area, and even trying to push forward, like we canceled Pride this year because they thought there was terrorists running around, and it's just I don't know how to push forward the activism I can handle at the the state level into like a county level, and I didn't know if you had some input on that.
Yeah. I see, Mephi, you're having... hopefully, did you get all that? I saw there were some connection issues there.
Yeah, I missed a little bit of it.
I mean, I think Fiona basically just said she lives in a conservative county, and it's a little more difficult than maybe at the Capitol. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say there's, the Capitol isn't always even a place where anybody can be doing things. There's always your township or your city, whichever it's classified as. Taking the time to get to know the community leaders there and talking to them about some of these issues. If you can, the key is the people who are maybe not generally floating to the surface most of the time, right? Like you've got your folks who are, they're going to be out there with their MAGA signs and, Trump 2028 hats, but the people who aren't really politically active, maybe they're just culturally Republican, like they do it because that's what their family does. A lot of these folks can be convinced and be swayed, but there's also a lot of folks who just need to be mobilized, really. Folks who, maybe somebody coming and knocking on their door and just talking to them about stuff that's going on is what'll get them to come out to an action, come to City Hall to support an ordinance, You can, if you wanted to get an ordinance done in your city, really anybody can do it. You write it up, you talk to, you said you were on a LGBT council there. You talk to folks there.
Yes.
You write up some proposals, maybe have a lawyer look over them, and go to your most friendly city councilor, and you can have those things on the city council agenda. You can have hearings about it. You can get people in your town to come and talk about these things. And obviously people are going to be more dangerous if you're going out there and trying to talk to them. So, but I would just recommend bringing like a friend with you. And I don't know what the Second Amendment laws are in your state, but this might be controversial, but I'm a person who advocates for queer people to stay armed. Because it's a dangerous time. We don't want to be the only ones who are vulnerable.
I'm sorry. I do have my concealed carry permit. It is
Awesome.
legal for somebody to carry a pistol, and I understand that completely. Believe me.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any? I'm curious. Like, I know a lot of the places that I've done activism, there have been people who are like former military, or like I mentioned, John Brown Gun Club earlier. Like, just people who are generally kind of, their whole thing is being the big beefy guy who kind of protects activists who are doing actions like this. So, like, do you know if there's anyone like that in your area who maybe could make you feel a little bit more safe if you wanted to like go to any of these like citywide like council meetings or anything like that, where, you know, you could maybe get your voice heard and know that like nobody's gonna like jump you in the parking lot or anything like that?
There is a group. It's called Security. We have that at the Capitol. I'm pretty sure they can drive a few hours down to where I'm at and hopefully help out. I would guess,
Yeah. Or maybe they could know somebody who's already in the area. I think that could be useful. Those are definitely some of the things I think about. Sorry, go ahead, Mephi.
A lot of people are perfectly willing to come out to other towns and help out with organizing, just volunteering for any of the grunt work that you might need as well. And when it comes to finding folks with experience in those sorts of things, there are lots of organizations like DSA or PSL or the SRA who might have local chapters who would be happy to lend you advice or organizing stuff, or even like help you start a chapter in your town as well, so that you can have like an official sort of gathering place for people.
And I think that's a big thing around our area, is there really isn't a big community. I know there's people that exist out there, but there isn't like a gathering place or an official organization that is in this area. I have to drive like 2.5 hours just to get somewhere, I understand that.
Hey, if you've got just 10 people in your town, find those 10 people, get their numbers, get on a group chat, because you might have trouble with maybe going out and doing something like today, but there are always opportunities that come up where a small crowd of people in the right place at the right time can get a lot done.
For sure.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense to me. I wasn't where to start, because I've been driving like all the time up north to the cities, because the cities is awesome. I'm telling you, it's probably one of the best places for LGBT community. But where I'm at, it's tough. It's real tough.
I just went to Minneapolis earlier this year for a conference, and honestly, it is like almost near the top of my places to leave Texas to list, because I loved it so much. Minneapolis was a really awesome city. It felt, the energy was great there. The inclusivity was great there. The affordability in Minnesota in general compared to a lot of the country is up there. So I definitely, I envy you in Minnesota. It's high on the list. It's very high on the list.
That's funny. I also took a trip up to Minnesota recently.
Oh yeah.
I went there last month for a content collab, but we're still editing that video. So.
Oh, okay.
That should be out soonish.
Fiona, is there anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
No, you guys have been, it's a Minnesota thing. I'm sorry. It's always been a great thing that we have activists out here that push the actual truth and information out there, because we have so many people that are having issues understanding, and trying to give that information out makes a huge difference. And I love that you are having that information put out, you know.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Share our stuff, share it with
to-
the people around you, share the show, encourage people to call in. If you're like, man, I don't want to be the one taking their questions, but they need questions answered, I would love to talk to them. That is like what I do this for. So
Yeah. And if you're planning to spread information, my best advice is start a fact sheet. You see something, a study that is useful to you to know, an argument that you sometimes struggle with formulating on the spot, you write it down in there. You have that reference thing ready to go. And people appreciate when you're able to just like present them with cold hard facts about stuff. If you're having conversations with folks in your town and you're trying to dispel certain myths, if you can just like go on your phone, bring up whatever it is that they're worried about and show them, hey, this is actually not the case, then it tends to make a lot more progress than you might think. You know, it's things like that that can kind of break through that shell.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, both of you.
yeah, thank you for calling, Fiona. We appreciate it. And call back if you have any other questions, okay?
Okay.
Lovely. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Lines are definitely filling up. So we might not be able to get to all of you. We're going to do our best here. But I do appreciate everyone for calling in. All right, let's see. We're using auto screener tonight, so I'm also having to kind of suss out what these calls are about from some messy note. People, they talk into the auto screener, and so a lot of people are like, so my thing is that, well, I think, and so you kind of have to like look for the keywords here and there to be like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. Leah, let's talk to Rebecca about persistence / desistance. Rebecca, she, her from the USA. You are live with
Hello?
Arden, Hart, and Mephi. What's going on?
Okay, so last week I called the transatlantic call-in show, but unfortunately I didn't really have the time because I was intercepted by a college class. So
Oh yeah.
basically the long and short of it is I was talking to someone and they were like anti-giving trans healthcare to minors, you know, and they cited an opinion piece or an article. I think it was an opinion piece that cited a study that was in German, and it was like Google Translate wasn't giving me any good answers, so I had to go to a German speaker to actually have it translated and summarized.
Okay.
But basically, from what I gather, the long and the short of it is that I actually have the article. If you can give me a second, I can cite it. I can give you the name. It's Gender Identity Disorder Among Young People in Germany, Prevalence and Trends 2013 through 2022, an analysis of nationwide routine insurance data. And from what I was told, basically it used data from insurance companies about people receiving gender-affirming care, I believe people who were specifically diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and it found that only 36.4% of kids actually persisted into adulthood. I thought this finding was a bit interesting because from what I've heard, that what I've seen in the other studies I've read, like the ones that I've actually been able to read myself, that the regret rate is incredibly low, and I mean, I personally myself just recently, a few months ago, started transitioning, and at the age of 22, you know, I wish I could have started sooner, but it is what it is. Even then, like subjectively, it's been like life saving, and I really wish I could have started earlier. But you know, that's not good. But like anecdotes are not good data. I just wanted to know what you might think of the study, because unlike that really bad Swedish study, from what I can tell, which is admittedly very little, this one seems a bit more legit.
Sure.
I don't know, because there's a few red flags popping out at me here. One is the use of the term gender identity disorder, which is an older form of the word. I'm not sure if it was still around in 2013, but it's not in the DSM anymore. So I don't know that they're using modern criterion for diagnosis. The other thing would be, I don't know if they're talking about people who have actually been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, because, well, if they're saying gender identity disorder, then gender dysphoria wouldn't be the diagnosis there, because those two were not in the DSM at the same time. And then the persistence desistance thing is mostly a category error, right? We're talking about basically folks who are screened and then not diagnosed with gender dysphoria, or trans kids who are screened and not diagnosed. Like their parents think, hey, this kid's doing some gender nonconforming stuff. Let me take them to the clinic, see if they're trans. Therapist talks to them for a little bit. Therapist is like, nah, this kid's not trans. They just do something that's not usual for their gender, but they're cis. And that tends to be that 80% or in case like 70% rate of desistance. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that from what I gather, and I'm sorry I can't read it to you, it seems to be people who actually got insurance coverage for gender-affirming care and potentially even like gender identity disorders, which might be referring to gender dysphoria, because it is from 2013 to 2022, which would correspond to the change to the DSM-5.
So I haven't looked too deeply into the study. There's a few other red flags that jump out at me, and notably one is that, we're talking about a healthcare system that's very different from the one in the US. A lot of the data on like the low desistance rates, we're talking about the US, where I guess you could argue that since our healthcare system is so monumentally garbage and getting healthcare is so difficult, that people who are getting diagnoses are people who are probably already at the get-go kind of persistent in their seeking of care. Whereas, I don't know what the healthcare system is in Germany, so I don't want to like really speak to that. I don't know. I would have to review the study. I do have it pulled up though, so thank you for mentioning that, and I'll definitely look into that.
I'm not the type of person to know, because I've been trying to formulate good arguments for like trans healthcare and stuff like that before when I talk to people and I try to convince them, because I understand that it is scary and stuff, but it's like when someone pulls up a study that I've never read and then can't ever read, and then basically goes like, oh, you got owned by facts and logic, and it's like, brother, I can't even read this.
Yeah,
it's a bit frustrating, but they walked away like thinking they, I suppose, won the interaction, even though I was like, I hadn't seen the study. You cited a strongly worded kind of aggressive opinion piece to me that mentioned this study, and
so I think one thing that's important to notice is that when we're like, a lot of the data on desistance that I've seen coming from the US that talks about like the low desistance numbers are like pretty large scale sizes. What is the sample size on this one? It was like 200 and like around 300. So there's like multiple things here. One, there's a much lower sample size, so that could be interfering with some of these data. But I don't know. I'm just saying that could be an explanation. Can I actually? I just want to. Can I just finish what I was going to say first? Because I'm going to lose it. ADHD. No worries. Mostly. Oh, it's slipping away. Oh, it's slipping away like water through my fingers. Go ahead, say what you're going to say, and I'll try to write it down. The lingering threads of coherence.
How did you get the sample size? This was from using insurance, nationwide routine insurance data. I don't know the sample size because I can't read it. Just want to make sure that we're talking about the same study.
Yeah, no, actually, that wasn't the sample size. That was a different number I'm seeing here. At least. Okay, so this is actually a pretty big sample. So it's 2013 to 2022. It's 13 to 14 million insured persons. This is similar to, I've often cited the AMA, American Medical Association, data on like the rate of access to care that suggests like the rate of access to care for minors is actually extraordinarily low, even lower than the rate at which we expect trans people to be in the population. So these are just insurance claims. Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't seen this, but here's the thing that I was going to say. The key part that I think is so important to keep in mind is that the American studies that I've seen that have cited this were in many cases not only large sample sizes, but were also like meta-analyses. So these are like where they are looking at many studies at one time. I have seen 2 or 3 studies, including this one that you recommended to me, that suggest a number similar to this. And that may be the number. I don't know. But it's important to note that like 1 paper, 2 papers, or even 3 papers don't overturn a like medical consensus. And even if we granted everything, right? Let's say that is the desistance rate. That a lot of the times when people drop a study like this, the kind of implication is that, oh, well, if the desistance rate is so high, then we should just stop giving care to these people. Whereas quite the contrary, if the desistance rate is that high, that means we need to be evaluating these kids far more thoroughly. They need to be in therapy for even longer. We need to really have an idea of what the actual criteria are to classify somebody as benefiting from gender-affirming care. So I don't find this particularly earth-shattering to my understanding of trans rights. I definitely want to read it more and understand more, because I remember I was producing the show you called in, Rebecca, last time, and but I haven't gotten to read this paper yet. So I do want to check it out and really understand it a little bit more in depth. But I wouldn't consider it earth-shattering, really. I mean, I've seen a similar paper twice before, and I've seen many more papers which would indicate a contradicting set of data. So I don't think it's particularly scary or threatening or should like shake your foundation of your understanding of trans rights. I think it's fair to acknowledge that there's lots of things we don't understand about trans rights, trans healthcare, and trans people, in part because our government is currently slashing all money going to research that would give us information to work with on these kinds of things.
Yep.
I have always long said I don't want anybody rushed into transition, but I don't want people have unnecessary hurdles put in front of them either. I want whatever the evidence indicates is going to lead to the best outcomes for kids. That's what I want. Whether that means accessing trans healthcare, or whether it means if we find out that waiting till they're 18 actually does create the best results for kids long term, I would support that too. But right now, as far as I can tell, that's not really what the evidence supports. So I don't know. I wouldn't take this as too scary or too threatening. But it is interesting, and I'll read it more, and I would like to understand this paper a little bit more in depth. And I do think there's going to be some cultural differences to how Germany structures their healthcare system that are going to affect this compared to the United States. But I mean, like, the sample size is pretty big, and I imagine whatever data they're getting from, because like when you're doing insurance database studies like this, the epidemiological data that you get from it are really strong because you have so many people. So yeah, I mean, there may be something here, but again, even if all of this were true, it doesn't really change anything about how doctors should approach giving healthcare to people, kids included. It doesn't really change anything about the efficacy of gender affirming care. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth looking into, but yeah, that's kind of all I really have to say on it right now based on my limited relationship to this paper, but I'm definitely going to read it now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Yeah,
if at any point you do read it and you do have thoughts on it, I might be interested into hearing what those thoughts are.
For sure.
And then also, I guess I suppose like I mean, is there any meaningful way to, I guess, how do you interact with people in such a way that it's an honest interaction? Because I know for a fact they didn't read the study. I get the feeling they just brought it to like sort of dunk on me and whatever. But
yeah,
well, I would say,
go ahead.
Just like I said to the last caller, something that is good for just beating back the pettiness and, sort of taking them off that ground is keeping a fact sheet. Nominal Naomi has a great one. Sock Done Left has a great one. You can start with one of them, keeping your own fact sheet as well. But yeah, if somebody's like, I've got this one study that shows this thing, and then you're like, okay, here's the meta study of like 6 dozen studies that shows the opposite of that, then maybe you can start having like an honest conversation about the actual science. But if this person is going to ignore all those other studies, then at that point, that's a person who's not even interested in an honest conversation. And you might be better off just not trying to talk to them about that, because at that point, I don't think that they're really interested in like looking at trans people as human. You know, like if you're going to change your standards of evidence depending on which way that evidence leans, that isn't particularly good faith there. But, you know, maybe sometimes people do that consciously. So if you point that out to them, that they are instinctively dismissing 50 plus studies that disagree with them while propping up this one that does, you know, maybe that might crack something in their...
I just cracked the code here on my issue with this study, Rebecca. And listen, this could just be me getting excited because I saw something that made me go, oh, wait, no, I actually have major problems with this. So specifically, the diagnosis that we're talking about here is ICD-10 diagnosis F64, quote, gender identity disorders. And then they go on to say this clarifies as transsexualism, dual role transvesticism, gender identity disorder of childhood, other gender identity disorders, gender identity disorder unspecified. So it sounds to me like the diagnosis classifier in this paper is referring to a very, very broad understanding of trans that doesn't really comport with what we talk about when we're talking about trans people here in the US. Like, I don't know if dual role transvesticism sounds to me. Now, granted, I haven't read how this insurance company classifies that. Maybe they define that in a weird way where it would comport with what we understand. I don't know yet. But on a glance reading, it would make sense to me that somebody, if we're including people who would consider themselves dual role transvestites, that, yeah, maybe not all those people would like persist with a gender identity that they're willing to claim publicly to a researcher. Anyway, these are just really basic, again, audience. I don't want the audience to be like, oh, they found it, the study is totally debunked. I don't know yet. I really haven't read it that deep, but for sure, there are some things here that don't exactly mesh with my understanding. So, yeah, I don't think this is a particularly revolutionary, earth-shattering, trans rights destroying study that somebody thinks it is. It seems kind of unremarkable to me at a glance, but I don't know. You should call back sometime, and I'll try to get this read in the next like month, and hopefully I'll have more thoughts to share on it.
I'll certainly do that. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate how quickly you are able to figure this stuff out. You're quite smart.
I appreciate it. I do like the ego boost. Thank you so much for calling, Rebecca. We appreciate your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your night, okay?
Take care, Rebecca.
Bye. Alrighty. Real quick before we take some more calls, let's see. We're at 7:15. I think we'll move to super chats. We'll keep working with it. I'm not going to stress it right now. I do want to remind you guys to hit like and subscribe if you can. If you don't know, hitting the like button isn't just like hitting like on your aunt's Facebook post where it makes her feel good like somebody saw her. That actually tells the YouTube algorithm that this video is something people are interested in seeing and puts it on more people's pages. So please, if you're sitting here and you want to hit the like button, that means a lot to us and it's totally free. We're not, we do appreciate monetary support, but we are not asking for that. In all cases, I am asking for it. But also, if you don't have money to give us and you can just do a free thumbs up, that helps us a lot. So I appreciate you guys so much. Please, the like button. I also think Jimmy said he was going to give his dog a treat or something. So don't deny Dexter a treat. Hit that like button so Dexter can get his treat, okay? Alrighty. Let's see. What do we got working with for calls right now?
Hey, if you want to set a like goal or something, I can go and get one of the cats around here.
Ooh,
bring them up.
I like that. We're at 354 right now. I feel like if they get to 666 likes, we can definitely do that. We've done that many times before. We'll have some kitties. So right on.
Yay!
So get to work, chat. Hit that like button. All right, let's see what we got for calls right now. So we have gender and sex. We talk about them, social versus biological. Wanting to know how to get involved in trans activism without white knighting, coming from a cis person. Talks support about trans people. I've been doing more research and just want to get past this little barrier. Ooh, that sounds interesting. All right, let me bring in Vector, pronouns he, him, from Michigan. Vector, you are live on the line with Arden and Mephi. What's going on?
Yeah, I think I called in like maybe 2-3 months ago, and guys explained it in a really good way. But I'm actually going out and trying to be friends with like more people that like more like trans people and stuff. But I just don't know. I don't know how to like support. Like my activism is different, like because like where I'm from and stuff like that. So like you guys like talk about like research and stuff like that, and that's just not really my way of like activism. Mine's just more physical, to be honest. Like the moment I heard the other person, I don't know your guys' name, but you were talking about like getting strapped up with like making sure you getting like armed up and stuff like that. Like that's the type of stuff that I'm into. Like I like the talking. I don't really get it. Like because at the end of the day, like for me, like as someone that's like black and stuff, like if they racist, they just racist. They just want to harm me, and so like how can I help you with my skill set and help your community like that? Because like the more I'm getting more friends that are like trans, I'm getting tired of the physical stuff that's happening to you guys, and I just want to be able to help the community in that way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'll let Mephi jump in here. I was just gonna say the caller we had a few calls ago was mentioning that they were nervous to, going to like hearings and to sort of make their voice heard. And I think, being the kind of, if you want to be like the more physical wall of defense for a person, like that is super valuable. Yeah. We definitely need people who are willing to like put their body out there to be like, try to de-escalate obviously first, but to know that like there's going to be somebody who's going to have your back while you're like out trying to make your voice heard. That's huge. But yeah, sorry, Mephi, I cut you off.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a problem doing that.
Right on.
I don't know why so many people are so scared to do that. Like that's like, America was built off of rebellion. So like, I feel like they're taking all these rights from you guys. I'm getting to a point that it's like, it's only going to get worse. And I'm trying to look for a place where someone's organizing in that way, but I'm not really seeing. But basically, do you guys know any organizations that are pointing in that direction? Really?
Well, I would say when it comes to who's going to be, it depends on what exactly the certain political goals are. But if you are looking to be someone who can show up to physically protect people, you're going to want to look for folks who put on demonstrations and protests. And those folks are going to be generally pretty specific to your area. I don't know very much about Michigan. Michigan?
Yeah.
But if you go to, if you hear about things like there are things like the No Kings protest that, they seem very superficial. Like a lot of people, they go to the protest and then they go home and don't do anything beyond that. But the folks who are organizing those things, they're there and they want people who are going to ask them how to get involved in further action. Also, at a lot of the speaking stuff, there are folks who are going to be wanting folks to get involved in further action. At mutual aid volunteering events, people are going to be trying to build those networks and make contacts. And if you just hear about a demonstration that's going on in your town, you show up, I bet there's going to be people from those organizations there because, it's their demonstration. And that's really one of the easiest ways to get it, although you got to be really on it with what's going around in your area, which can be pretty difficult. But, and if you want to be one of the Antifa super soldiers, like we always welcome them. A couple of years ago, I went to this counter protest for at a drag show where this local fascist militia was showing up to stand out there with their guns and their gear and basically try to intimidate the folks at that show. But on our side, we also had people like Veterans for Equality who were in their gear with their guns. We had folks who were in black bloc with Antifa symbols on them.
Yeah,
Those
that's
folks,
what I'm looking for. It's just really hard
I
to
felt
find
so
online.
much better having those people there. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff. Or like if you guys were like organizing, like, and you guys need like security detail and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard earlier, Vector, I mentioned like the John Brown Gun Club. I think there are like, I don't know if they're considered chapters. I don't know their organizational structure, but there are like groups of them, the John Brown Gun Club members, like all over in like almost every major metropolitan area is my understanding. And they're usually doing exactly that. They're ready to help protect people who are like doing the talking, who are like holding the signs, who are, kind of causing a ruckus for people. Like they're the line of defense for them. And like, yeah, we can't get enough of those people at these sort of actions. So like definitely there's so many people who could use another person who's like got that sort of fire. And it sounds like you're coming from exactly the right place. You want to like really just help and like, help people do what they're doing.
Really,
so that's
where
great.
It's not like I want blood or anything. It's just like when I see these, you guys are picketing and stuff like that, I just see, I don't know how to say it, just like fists in a bowl. You guys are just kind of out in the open. I just feel like you guys are too exposed. And if there's just some bodies around that are just there showing that you guys are like protected, or there's some type of opposition to it, I feel like the violence will be a little bit subsided, because these MAGA people, they act like they tough, but the moment there's any type of pushback, these motherfuckers are weak as hell. And so, I think that's genuinely what's the problem, is that there's no outward, facing opposition of like, hey, you do something, there's going to be a physical consequence to it. And
yeah,
that's I don't know if that's right or wrong or whatever, but whatever.
No, absolutely.
Well,
that's super important. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why these folks, they only tend to gather in numbers, but you go pretty much anywhere in a bigger town and you can find queer people just out and about being ourselves. People wear just anti-fascist shirts just all around for fashion, and what you're saying about them being pretty weak in person, those LARPers that I was talking about before, that drag show was 2 hours long. They had to sit down after 45 minutes. It was quite funny. Definitely. I would say look into the folks who do this kind of on the ground action. And another thing that is also a good place to go is most places around this country that I know of, or at least as far as I can tell, maybe not in some of the rural areas, but self-defense classes for marginalized folks are a pretty common thing. And if there isn't one in your area, maybe you can start it,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that's definitely a good place to meet folks.
I think that's my only problem, is that I'm not really a social person. So that's why I just kind of want to be a part of, like, if someone's like leading it, like I got my own skills, but I don't really, I know I sound personable now, is just because you guys are real cool. I listen to you guys.
You're
you
cool
guys
too.
Are really intelligent. I know you guys are safe space, And so, but when it comes to other people,
I'm gonna say we are not all that unique in that regard. Like people who are cool and just want to protect human rights and stand up for marginalized folks, we're all over the place. We just look like everyone else, so it's harder to see.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to overcome the antisocial thing to get plugged in initially, but genuinely, like Mephi has said earlier tonight, I think once you have like that one connect, that one person who you know personally, who does a lot of organizing, I guarantee you every time they have a political action, they're going to be like, hey, can you show up? We need you.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I could try to do it. It's just, I don't know if you could tell. I'm pretty sure most people can't tell if someone's autistic unless it's obvious. But yeah, I'm pretty like, it's pretty much like if I see something that I don't like, that's like about like someone's taking advantage of somebody, or like I see little signs of someone taking advantage of somebody, I'm really high about justice. So that kind of ruins a lot of my relationships.
I don't want to stereotype
that,
autistic folks, but I would say I organize with more autistic folks than non-autistic folks, just because of that strong sense of justice thing.
Yep.
I go to work, I'm the most autistic person there. I go to organize, and I'm the least autistic person there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot of autistic folks in the organizing community. Absolutely. Especially now with how autistic folks are being attacked by this administration.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's been happening forever. I actually just found out that I was a little autistic. Just from, like, I didn't realize a lot of times that people don't just say what they feel. I've always thought that was normal. Like, my entire life, I've always just said what I felt on my chest. Like, no double meaning or nothing. Like when I'm coming to you guys right now, I want to help you guys. There's no ulterior motive. It's just completely pure, you know?
Yep.
And I didn't know that was not normal. So, but yeah, I'll look into it and all that. I guess my second question is non-binary transgender?
Generally, yeah. I mean, if there's a non-binary person who says that they don't identify with being transgender, I mean, I'm not going to police anyone's labels, but transgender generally just refers to folks who have a gender identity that's not the one they were assigned at birth. And so if a person has a non-binary identity that isn't male or female, then that would fall under that umbrella term.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that was the thing that all this other stuff was just, I've been kind of thinking about that a lot. But yeah, that was actually the initial question, because I was so confused by non-binary. It feels like it's a whole rabbit hole there. But okay,
well,
so
that's fair. It is kind of a big umbrella. Non-binary refers to like so many different kinds of identities that are, some of which are like so not related to each other at all. So that's an understandable reaction.
Okay. Yeah, because when I saw non-binary, at first I was like, I thought I was, and then I kept on looking at it, I was like, because, like, for me, it's like, the gender roles thing, I think it's silly, in, like, a practical way. For me, it's just like, it feels like a lot of people are kind of, like, acting a role, and for me, I'm just me.
Yep. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm just me. Like, sometimes I want to do, like, I want to go out and fight, or I want to go out and do, like, I want to play games, or sometimes I want to play dolls with my little girl. I don't see why this has to be, like, a thing that you got to follow or track. Is that non-binary, or is that just being me? I don't know.
I think it can be. Some people who are agender, who it's like, I think sometimes when you're sorry, I'm trying to parse this out because it's kind of complex. There are some people who are cis who just don't have any sort of relationship to their gender, and they don't think about it a lot. And that can seem like being what's called agender. But agender is actually a sort of notion of not really having a gender identity, just like kind of not relating to the entire concept. Like, just, I don't want to be put into any sort of box on that plane, and just kind of a rejection of the whole structure as it is. So that may apply to you, and whether or not that makes you non-binary is really a personal thing. Like, to me, what labels are, they serve two purposes. They help you communicate to other people some fact about yourself that you don't want to, you don't want to get into telling them your whole life story yet, so you can be like non-binary, agender. That gives them a good summary without getting into the nitty-gritty. And then secondly is to kind of talk about shared oppression, when there's like a group of people who have like sort of shared struggles in a culture. It's useful to have labels so that you can at least be like, you can talk about it. Like, this group faces these particular struggles. But really, like, if you want to like wear the label, that is a completely a personal choice. So, yeah, it's kind of up to you.
Okay.
And when it comes to like, go ahead.
Oh that makes sense. It's just like for me, it's like when someone like call me he and him and all that stuff. I got big beard, like I got big pussy beard, and so for me, it's like it's just easier for them just to say that because honestly, I don't really care at all. I think that's the main thing. Like I don't care about any of it.
Yep.
Like I care what's happening to the people that are like getting fucked up over all these concepts, but to me, they're just concepts, like separate from myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I like to use the planetary model. If you've ever heard that men are from Mars and women are from Venus thing, I like to turn that on its head and say, maybe you were born on Mars, but you would prefer to live on Venus. Maybe you're born on Mars and you don't care about where you live. Maybe you live on a different planet. Maybe you live on a gender that isn't binary, but maybe you're just out in space. Maybe you're kind of close to one of the planets and you're just like on a moon orbiting it. Or maybe you're just, maybe you're a traveler and you like to go to different places all the time. It's,
I love that.
But yeah, but the planets are big places and there's a lot of different ways to be on them and a lot of different ways to live just wherever you want to go.
Oh, okay. I was
Little
just making
gender
sure I
spaceship.
wasn't being like privileged and stuff because, I look like a dude. And so I feel like it would be a lot easier for me not to care about this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I was like trying to really kind of figure it out. But like from your explanation, to be honest, I'm thinking agender because I just genuinely don't care. But I think I don't care because I'm a dude, like because the way I look.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think both those perspectives are totally valid. If you want, you could next time you want to call Transatlantic on Thursdays, our host Luxander identifies as agender. So if you want to talk to it about any of those feelings, like I'm sure it would have a lot more valuable insight to give on that identity label specifically. But it totally makes sense that you might just be like, I think I might just be a guy and just it doesn't really hit my radar. And so like that totally makes sense. And that's totally cool too.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, that's why I like calling you guys. You guys are very, and when I mean God, that's what I just call everybody. Yeah, that's another thing I was having a problem with. Like my transgender friends, I don't mean nothing by that. But yeah, you are awesome. Cool. I like talking to you.
You're awesome too, Vector. Thanks for calling. I really appreciate this. You have an awesome day.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
That was really sweet.
Yeah, I like Vector a lot. We need a lot more people like him who are willing to be like, hey, I don't really want to debate. I just kind of want to be able to show up for you guys. Like, holy crap, we could never get enough people in that like description. So like, if that works for you, like
he really came in with direction and magnitude there.
Yeah, I was gonna say to the you guys thing. I know a lot of people will say that and then they'll feel bad. And my kind of rule of thumb is kind of always like, if that's just a way you talk to everybody, you should talk to trans people like that. Like if you use dude for everybody, you should probably talk to trans people like that, unless they specifically ask you not to. But like, yeah, I never am bothered by if somebody's like you guys or like dude or whatever. That doesn't usually register on my radar as somebody trying to be like rude or bigoted or misgendering or anything like that. Maybe that's just me. But
me neither. I have a friend who literally they thems everyone. Like she struggles to he, him, or she, her people, which is kind of a different end of that spectrum. But like, I mean, everybody who knows her knows that she does that, and we don't care. Even though I'm a she, that's her, a fair approach. They them.
Yeah. That's way safer for sure to be like, oh, hey, they them kind of applies to everyone in some circumstances. So like, it's just when you're using it to avoid gendering someone correctly that I'm usually bothered by it. But all right. So let's see. We probably can only take about 2 more callers, and we have a bunch of y'all on the line. So I'm sorry we're not gonna be able to get to all of you, but let's see. Looking to be trans activist, actually trans girl. Let's see. I want to ask. Grandparents aren't supportive. John from Virginia. calling for advice regarding his non-binary child. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do any of those because Natalie has been waiting the longest, and I would like to be respectful of her time. So we're going to talk to Natalie, she, her, in Washington, who says gender and sex, and the way we talk about them is social versus biological constructs. So, Natalie, you are live on the line with Arden and Mephi. You want to expand on that a little? Help us understand where you're coming from?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep, coming through. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I've been reading Julia Serrano's books a lot lately, and kind of been thinking about this, and also watching The Line. And like one thing that has kind of struck me is a lot of callers recently are kind of making the argument that like gender is fake, and because it's like social construct, whereas like sex is real because it's biological. And sometimes there's like a less hostile variant of that, which is like, well, if we abolish gender, we get to a gender abolished world. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Like, would trans people exist at that point? And like, I like the way that she like addresses that, because kind of talks about how both gender and sex are like a combination of biological and social. So like gender, like there is like, she refers to it as like a subconscious sex, and I've heard like sometimes hosts on the line will say like a brain body map kind of thing, and that's like the feelings of dysphoria often arise from that. And then like sex, it's like there's all these different sexual characteristics, and like which ones we pay attention to and use to classify people into like the little categories is also like a socially constructed kind of system. So yeah, I don't know. They're both, not purely one or the other, I think. Like I agree with that a lot. And I don't know. I think like, I don't know. I just think that she has a lot of like really useful, terminology and theory.
Julia Serrano is great. Her contributions to the community are many, for sure.
Yeah.
You were looking like you were itching to jump in there.
I have read no Julia Serrano.
No worries. I read her more popular book, and I think I got like halfway through her second one. I don't know how many books she's read, so I shouldn't organize them by number. I completely agree. I have always talked about gender, like when people say a social construct, there's a contingent of people who hear, like you're kind of pointing out, like fictional, like made up, like it came from your imagination. And it's like, okay, no. First of all, humans are a social species, right? Our biology is very intertwined to the way which we relate to and interact with one another. And part of that is identity formation. And it's not just gender identity where we see this in the brain. Like, when it comes to like your personality, right? Or like your temperament is kind of like the sort of infant version of personality, which are just kind of like the ways which you as an individual react to stimuli, are so contingent on so many biological factors, like your genetics, things that happen to you in utero, like it can determine like how sensitive you are, and then how sensitive you are can change how you like form relationships to stimuli in the world, right? If you're like a very sensitive person, as I was and have been my whole life, and there's a sense in which that can make you like get traumatized more easily, or also be a more sensitive person to the suffering of others, more empathetic, because you're like kind of reacting to those stimuli differently. But I think one thing that just like blows this out of the water that gender is made up to me is there's like a few dimensions we can think about it. But for example, like I like to talk about John Money and David Raymer, right? Dr. John Money was this guy who I think he was looking into like gender sort of medicine early on, like when we were first kind of starting to unpack this in like a medical way. And what happened was David Raymer was born and had a botched circumcision, right? And so John Money was kind of under the impression that gender was completely socialized, and so was basically like, you know what, we could surgically alter this infant's genitals, and you could raise him as a girl, and then that should be problem solved. Well, turns out gender identity is not purely social. There is some biological underpinning, because David Raymer figured this out when he was like in his teens, rejected the female identity, tried to live as a man, and ended up taking his own life in his late 30s because of how difficult it was for him. And when we look at things like conversion therapy, right? There's a bunch of different names for it: reparative therapy, like sexual orientation change efforts, or something like that. They're all the same thing, and they're describing a therapeutic practice with the goal of the patient remaining cisgender or heterosexual. And across the board, we see with these treatments, they do not affect any meaningful, sustained change in a patient's identity. What they do is cause the individual to feel an immense amount of shame and self-loathing. They increase rates of like suicidality, depression, self-harm, substance abuse disorders. So many negative side effects come from this. What that says to me is that gender identity is such an integral part of both our biological and sociological reality that you could be surgically altered against your will. You could be in a form of therapy that is considered torture, and it still couldn't change you. You could be tortured and surgically altered against your will, and it will not change your gender identity. That's how important this thing is, this concept is, to the human psychology. So like, absolutely, there are so many biological underpinnings to gender identity, just because the way we express it and the way it manifests in like large systems is socially constructed, and that's how we talk about it, doesn't mean that it doesn't come from some sort of biological root. Sorry, I just lecture.
Yeah.
And
with, like all of that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and sorry, when it comes to people who want to make the bioessentialist argument, my thing is always just like, how is that useful? How is that an accurate description of the way that we actually move around in the world? Because, you know, people act like whether or not gender and sex are different is just a subjective opinion-based thing. No, we can only perceive so much about each other. We can only see so much from the outside. Like, you're not even looking at a person right now. If you're looking at the stream, you're seeing a bunch of pixels that represent me, right? And then that's giving you an image, and you're always getting an image projected onto your eyes, and then that image is what you're interpreting to see someone's gender as. Like, you're not seeing chromosomes, you're not seeing someone's brain, you're not seeing someone's internal gonads or gametes. You know, you are seeing the stuff that's on the outside. And then when you have stuff like gender norms and gender standards, these are all objectively social things, you know? So the bioessentialist idea just doesn't function at all. There's no useful way to apply that in the real world.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, like one of the things that Serrano talks about is how like essentialism, like gender essentialism, and she makes a new term called gender artifactualism, are kind of like two sides of the same coin. It's like basically the idea that, you know, gender is the same as sex on one hand, and then the other hand, that gender is just entirely a cultural artifact. Like, it has like no grounding in biology, and like they're both kind of extremes of like and like a lot of like kind of like radical feminists, and, you know, kind of like the origin of the whole like TERF thing is like, you know, gender artifactualism, basically saying that like, well, trans people are fake because we are reinforcing the gender binary, and, you know, our genders are like less real than cis people. But which is just, you know, cis sexism.
I always find that so funny. I reference this all the time, but I love reality TV, trash TV, especially like dating reality TV. There's something about it that is like a History Channel special featuring, like, if humans were like, I know we literally are apes, but if we think of them as like more of our concept of apes for a minute, it is like a nature documentary of like what we do as mating rituals in these weird settings. And I always reference, it's so funny to me when people are like, oh, well, trans people are reinforcing the binary by being trans, or we're just stereotypes or something that's kind of to that effect of what you're talking about. And I'm like, to the extent that that accusation is true, and I don't think it really is. I think trans people are far more likely to diverge from traditional expressions of gender. Cis people are the worst about this, and you see it in the reality TV show so hard. I was just watching The Bachelor in Paradise. It ended a few weeks ago, but the second episode, this guy shows up, and he's like well over 6 feet tall, square jaw, completely ripped, built like a fucking Marvel superhero. He comes running onto the beach, and she's like, "Wow, that's a whole man." One of the girls there, and I'm like, "What's a half man? What's a whole man? Are there half men? Is there something about his jawline or his height that contributes to the wholeness? Like, are short men 3/4? What is the math here? Like, it is such a cis people are doing this shit all the time, reinforcing these roles. Or like you'll see them like when there's like a special date night, they'll put on this dress and they'll be like, "Oh, like he makes me feel like such a woman," or something along those lines. And the guys do it too. It's like, yes, gender is to pretend that trans people are unique in the ways in which we reinforce or reify gender roles. It's just not the case. We just aren't unique in that way. Like, this is just across the board participating in a patriarchal, highly gendered society. You're going to do that as you start to understand yourself.
And I would say that trans people are like, our relationship with our gender is a lot more in depth, I think, than most cis people. We understand when we're like projecting gender outward and when we're not, when it's influencing us without us realizing. Or cis people, I feel like, often are influenced by gender standards without them realizing it. There's this anecdote that I reference all the time with people about how gender is such a social human thing in particular. My mom's friend got this kitten, named her Luna, had her for like 6 months. She says, like, "This is my beautiful girl." She dresses her up in these like pink little cat clothes. And then, tale as old as time, she takes Luna to the vet, and the vet says, "This is a boy." And so my mom's friend, she just immediately turns on a dime and says, "This is my handsome boy," puts him in like boy cat costumes and stuff. And Cat does not care. This is the exact same cat. Cat does not give a flying F. I don't know what the swearing rules are on here.
You're good.
Cats don't do gender. All right. That is a human thing. And we as a species have a tendency to like project that out onto stuff that it doesn't need it. It doesn't need to be there. I'm not sure where it originates from necessarily or why we're doing it, but it's a human tendency. It's probably mostly cultural, but I couldn't say. That's all I had.
Oh, Natalie, your phone might have gone to sleep. I realized you're on the web client.
Oh no, sorry. I was just processing all of that. I'm still here.
Yeah, sorry.
I think, I want to just like head off like a counter argument. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Natalie. I was just trying to fill the air. Go for it.
Oh, no. Why don't you talk about the counter argument thing?
Yeah. I was just gonna head off a counter argument where people were gonna say something like, "Oh, but like if you look at men and women or male and females, let's say in like some other species, let's say another one of the great apes, you might be able to see like statistically." Like correlated behaviors, right? That like females are more likely to do this behavior in the species and males are more likely to do this behavior in the species. And that isn't, when we're saying that these things are cultural and that like gender in the way that Mephi just described it, where you're like putting a dress on your cat, is like a cultural thing that we're projecting on other animals. None of that is a contradiction to the fact that if you divide a population down the middle, no matter what criteria you use to divide it down the middle, right? But if you split a population into two groups, you are going to find statistical trends between those two groups. Like, that is just how statistics work. It's not the fact that males are statistically inclined to do a behavior and females are statistically inclined to do a behavior in any species doesn't necessarily mean that it is the fact of being a female in that group that is causing them to do that behavior. That's correlation, causation, confusion. Anyway, go ahead, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh God, I don't know what else I was going to say, really.
Well, I can just jump in.
Oh,
Yeah,
actually, I
with
have
what
one thing.
Arden was
Sorry, I
just
just
saying.
remembered.
Go ahead.
I guess this kind of like gets into also like, I don't know. There's like the idea of like transgender as an umbrella for different types of like, I don't know, gender nonconforming people, and then like the term transsexual is kind of like fallen by the wayside, and like I don't know, I identify as like both labels, but like I don't really know where I'm going with this other than just like in terms of like medical care for trans people, like, you know, I guess it's like, you know, you don't have to be a trans medicalist to support medical care. You know, that might be like a trap that people could fall into if it's like you go too far down the, I don't know, essentialist route.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's an interesting topic though, Natalie. I appreciate you like bringing it up because it definitely there's so much I could say about like the superiority of the trans inclusive model of gender and sex to the biological essentialist model of gender and even the biological essentialist model of sex. Like, how often have I talked to a biological essentialist who, when you point out that intersex people exist, they go, well, sex is still binary, but those are intersex. And you're like, so are they male or female? Are they a third category? And they're just like, they're in, like, they don't know. They don't even know. And there's things like, you know, like there's, when you're defining woman, right, in the biological essentialist model, you often say adult human female. But the problem is adult is, while it is a biological concept in essence, it is really a legal concept, right? Like, what is an adult in the U.S. might not be, or, well, U.S. has a higher adult age than a lot of other countries. Who is an adult in, like, I don't know, some other country where you're an adult at 14, isn't an adult in the U.S. Like, did they go through a gender change when they traveled to the U.S.? Were they like a girl there and or a woman there and they're a girl in the U.S.? Like, how does that work? Whereas I think the trans inclusive model of sex doesn't have any of those flaws. We account for all of the nuances in human society and reality that influence how these labels work.
Yeah, and I would just say a lot of these Republicans and biological essentialists who want to say that adult is a hard biological line are suddenly getting real flexible with it when it comes to things like the age of consent.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else you wanted to add, Natalie, before we let you go?
No, love the show, and y'all are awesome. Have a great day.
Awesome. You too, Natalie.
too.
See you later.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to take one more call. I'm going to read you through our options. I just wanted to point out, I've been on the hammering on how often bots are everywhere. And somebody in the chat went, hot take, trans is the new age construct because we got bored. It's the new gay. It also panders to Gen Zers and millennials' lack of decision making and allows them to float. This account was created a year ago. The only messages they've ever put in this channel were today on this chat. Fucking bot.
Goodness.
Stop. Whenever you see shit like this, before you rage response, before you let them get your goat, check to see if they're even a fucking real person, because so often these kinds of people are not even real. They're a bot, probably out of some foreign country with really shitty... I'm gonna so get myself in trouble. They're a bot from somewhere, and they're not a real person, and you shouldn't let them get your rage. I just wanted to point that out. All right.
Look, in my day, we didn't have bots. We had to do our trolling ourselves. We had to sit down in our mother's basement and type out our hate messages with our own fingers. You kids these days are so spoiled.
For real, can we go back to... Forrest is always saying this when we have people who call in and drop a slur after waiting 2 hours. And he's like, can you be more creative? If you're going to troll me, can you put a little bit more effort in? All right, so here are our options.
Transphobes.
Here are our options for our last call. We have, and I'm sorry to the people who are listening, we're not going to be able to get to all of you. So we're going to pick from the who we have here. We've got Owen, who's a cis man who's wanting to know how to get involved without white knighting. Andy, who has grandparents who aren't supportive. John, who's calling for advice about his non-binary child. And Delaney, who says, Should trans activists in red states where their voices are drowned out, but where they're needed, speak up, or should they leave for safety and join organized efforts? Any of those?
I think Delaney, I would like to talk to.
All right.
About that, because that's the situation that we're both in.
Yeah, for real. So I'm so sorry to the rest of the callers. We're not going to be able to get to you tonight, but we are going to take Delaney, pronoun she, her, as our last call. Delaney from Florida, you are live with Arden and Mephi. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I live in Florida. I have been here for maybe 4 or 5 years. All of my family is here. And I do have networks here that I do organize with occasionally. I was with all of the No Kings protests in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood and Miami Beach. And I have a group back in Tampa, St. Pete, where I actually stay most of the time. And I feel like good work is being done here for people that can't leave. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I feel like, I don't know, the people that I'm around see me as like the token trans activist and sort of just nod and smile when I talk, and like I'm never going to change these people's opinions. These are the kinds of people that are like, oh yeah, he's a trans woman now and he's so happy, like that kind of stuff. Do I stay and try to yell at a brick wall, or do I go somewhere where I know people are organizing very effectively and doing real work? And also, like, there are a lot of times that I don't feel safe at all here. When I go outside of the city, like, I bring a Carhartt jacket with me and, like, grow my stubble out in, like, days in advance to try to, like, appear slightly less female. Like, do I take all of that into account when I think of my activism and my organizational efforts? Or is that, like, just the price of doing business, I guess? Is my question.
I think it should all be taken into account. I think that your personal safety is a judgment that only you can really make. But when it comes to whether or not it's worth it to organize in red states, I think people, I'm really glad that you called in, because this is something that I wanted to touch on today, and I don't think I got to it in the beginning segment, which is there is a base function of the minority opposition group in all territories, and that is to impose cost onto the people in power. That is to make it so that what they are doing is as painful and slow as possible, right? That is a lot of what we've done here in Texas, and, you know, it can feel pretty hopeless, right, to be in that kind of harm reduction sort of space where, you know, you feel like maybe you're just slowing down a tide of things. But the thing is, when there is a tsunami coming in, if you could stop that tsunami for even just 1 minute, if you had the power to do that, you might save lives. You know,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And, you know, when it comes to people who aren't interested in being persuaded, you know, I think what we are in right now is more of a mobilization moment than a persuasion moment. If there's somebody in your life who is not seeming like they are ever going to budge on this issue or change their mind or really stand up for you, then your efforts are best focused on other people, you know, because they're out there. Oh, excuse me. And they've probably got some barrier between them and being active. And those are the people that you can build community with. You know, it's unfortunately sometimes the people who are just in your immediate surrounding are not the most helpful people in the world. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that's the thing, is you go and you find the people who are. And those folks are also capable of helping you stay safe, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know that there are groups here in Florida that are you know, actively organizing. I think Equality Florida or Equality Rights Florida, something like that. They're doing fairly good work, but I do notice that they're like inactive a lot. There are large periods of time where I feel like the what do they call it? The onslaught, the shock tactic of like flood the zone. Yeah, the flooding the zone is very, very effective here. Like just last month.
If I could jump in real quick on something you said there. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt too hard, but you mentioned that it seems like that organization is not like being super active. And
Right.
that's an interesting thing that I've noticed with a lot of organizations, at least here in Texas, which is that their outward online presence does not seem to be very active. They have like some volunteering events up on their calendar and they make a few posts on social media, but their presence is very muted. It's very small. They don't have like great social media game. But these folks are more often than not as outwardly appearing to be doing stuff because they are on the ground doing the work in behind closed doors in spaces where you maybe don't necessarily see it. They're the folks who are, like I was talking about before, they are the lobbying the representatives. They are in the halls of the Capitol and in their city councils and writing up city ordinances. They are the folks who are going door to door and volunteering for stuff. They're the folks passing out food at mutual aid events. I definitely think that it's important to get your social media game up and get your messages out there and like get your demonstrations of what you're doing out there for sure, for specifically this reason, because when folks like you see, hey, here's this organization that says it's fighting for my rights, but then I don't see them doing anything, it can be disheartening. But they are doing it, and if you get in the space with them, I guarantee that they will be very happy to show you how to do what they're doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I will definitely try to reach out and find avenues to do that.
Yeah, I think this is really just such a personal thing, and like, I don't know. Like, for example, I grew up in a very conservative town. It was a very small town, and I left like as soon as I could. As soon as I was 18 and I was able to leave, I was out of there. And now I'm here in Texas, and I grew up in Vermont, which is like super progressive. So like I'm kind of regretting that decision now. No, just kidding. But I really like Texas, and like part of me really doesn't want to move because I love Austin. Austin is one of my favorite places I've ever lived. The food here is awesome. The people are fun. Like there's so much cool stuff going on all the time here. But I don't know. I guess it really matters about like.
Would Joe Rogan live there?
Yeah, that is a problem, but we don't even think about it. I just think it matters like. This is such a stupid reference, but I've been watching True Blood, right? That's my show I'm on right now. And one element of True Blood is that they're constantly like, oh, why are we in this town? Like, let's leave. And like a lot of the people are like, no, like this is my home. I deserve to stay. And like if they're gonna attack me no matter where I go, what's the point? Why should I leave? Why don't I just stay and like hold my ground? And I think that is a totally valid emotion to have. But also, if you're like, I can't be an effective activist here because I'm afraid of how to even just go about living my day-to-day life, and I would be so much better served living in a safer state, that's also totally valid. Like, we need people who are going to be effective, and if that means you living somewhere safe and maybe not able to contribute as much to Florida's efforts, that is okay, and we will make it, and you aren't going to be responsible for every bad law that passed in Florida because you moved away, right? Like that's not your fault. Right, like they're gonna do that anyway.
I get that, and I grew up in Texas. I know what you guys are talking about. I grew up in North Houston, and it can be rough. Even like before I was ever out as trans or anything other than a cis dude, it was already like rough just being. At the time, I called myself a liberal, but a leftist. I find that like so much of my culture and like who I am is tied to the South. So it hurts. Like you said, this is my home. I'm staying here. Why would I leave? Like it hurts to think about leaving, but then at the same time, like I'll never get my documents changed here. Like I'll always be considered a man here. If I don't leave, I'll be a man for my whole life. Or at least until the government here changes. And like I don't have an avenue to get there unless I go to every, town hall meeting. And when I'm living down here in Miami, and those meetings that are actually important for that change to happen, or in Tallahassee, like 8 hours away, it's like
and on a work day.
What am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like
totally.
It isn't all on you.
I really,
It's there's a lot of people, and I sometimes with the same issue. I'm definitely living in a safer area, I think, than what you're describing. But yeah, it can be tough to balance, do I stay here in this place that might be dangerous to me so that I can do something here versus go,
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's always people who are gonna pick up the torch. And, if you do want to help Florida, you don't have to stop helping Florida just because you leave Florida as well. There are still ways that you can contribute from afar. And maybe even the place where you go, if you go to a blue state, right, and you're like, okay, I'm safe here, you can help with making that place a good place for trans people who are fleeing other red states to land, and you can help get people into office who can push for pro-trans policies on a national level, which helps everyone. When you're coming from that place of strength, maybe it feels like there's less to do, but that just means that you focus your efforts higher. So if you want to be helping people, then really it's just up to whether or not you feel safe where you are and whether or not it's worth it for you to leave. But either case, you have options for how to put your abilities to use with helping out your community, because there is no one place in America where we need people to be pushing. We need people pushing everywhere, and wherever you go, there's going to be a need.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I appreciate y'all both. Love the show. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for calling, Delaney. Have a lovely night.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, that is all of our calls for the night. Let me close down the system. Also, I saw Melatonin Ale, regular in chat, saying, I've been living in ATX. I hate the traffic. I hear you, but hear me out. As a longtime New Englander, Austin traffic does suck. But the structure of Texas highways is actually fucking brilliant, because if you come from New England, like you were in Boston, there is no structure to that shit. It looks like a child took a crayon and scribbled, and they were like, "That's our roads. That's our map. We got it, fam." Whereas Texas is at least like our highways are structured, and there's always on and off ramps at all the right intersections and distances. You can get off a gate early, and it's gonna be the same access road. So if you need to turn, and you don't want to jump. I don't know. I think it's structured very well, but I understand the traffic is also awful.
And this is something that I actually bring up a lot when I'm talking about public transportation. Just as a side note, is here in San Antonio, right? We have a really well-developed car-based infrastructure. We've got a full wheel and spokes pattern, great set of access roads. 1604 is always going crazy, but there's always that one problem road. But the thing is, this is as good as car-based infrastructure gets, and it still sucks.
Yeah,
it's still bad.
For real.
If we had trains as robust as our highways, we would have a walkable city.
Oh my God. Walkable cities.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't envy Austin, though.
I hear that Zoran Momdani likes buses, which means I hate them.
Yeah, it's a radical left woke plot to get you on the bus.
Buses
they're
gonna
gonna take that bus and drive you to the transgenderification camps.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. All right, we have some super chats we're gonna read. So thank you guys to anyone who's entered super chat, $5 or more. We will read them, and we are starting now. $10 from Quantum. I almost did the Josie thing. Quantum Chaos, not Quantos Nachos. I only get 200 characters, and this is a very important message, so I have to make sure that I get this in before I run out of characters. This information is critical, and I don't have much time. We need... Nice. You had me. I was baited. I was in. I took the bait.
You want me to alternate?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
All right. $5 from Aaron. It's October. Reminder to all you lovelies to be aware of the signs of breast cancer and perform self-checks regularly. Purple Heart, and don't trust pink washing. Yes.
Right on.
A friend of mine actually recently had a scare with that, and she got it checked out, and she's doing all good. But, it's just a good reminder to make sure that you're always keeping yourself safe that way.
Yeah, getting your regular
And that's
checkups.
oh gosh, actually, I could rant about this for a while. If you're a trans woman, you've grown breast tissue with HRT, you also need checks. Like they want to bioessentialist divide your medical screenings, but you need to get breast cancer screenings a lot more than you need prostate cancer screenings.
For sure. Next one, 999 from Pillbug Hug. Question for Arden, since she mentioned it recently. What's the best Digimon game? Well, I just started the new one, Story Time Stranger. It's a weird name. And I'm going to be honest, I was watching like months of videos on the hype, and I was really excited, and I feel very let down. I feel betrayed. I think all those influencers were paid and lying. It's okay, but for 2025, a game that had this much hype and this is the quality, I was a little disappointed. Best game though, I really liked. I think it was Dusk or it was a DS game, and like one of them was like a little moon Digimon and one of them was a little fire Digimon. I forget what the names were. I think like Solar and Lunar or something like that. Those ones are probably my favorites. Oh wait, no, I lied. Digimon Rumble Arena. That is the one I have the most nostalgia for. That was on the PlayStation 1. That was really fun. It was like Super Smash Bros. But Digimon.
$100 from the Fudgy Logic. Wow. If advocating for the rights of trans people gets me labeled as a terrorist, then so be it. I will be matching the next $100 of super chats to support the fine work that Mephi and the line are doing to educate, agitate, and organize the nonviolent resistance. Yes, the nonviolent resistance. I'm beaming additional thoughts. But people can just interpret those however they want to.
Wow.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that what I'm saying is getting through, because sometimes I feel like I'm just yapping.
No, you're great. I appreciated so much of what you've said today. It's been a really good conversation. But also, Calacia showed up with $100 to secure the match, which is crazy that you did that. This is like our head mod, or I don't know if she's wanting to be labeled that as much these days. I think she's stepping back. But thank you so much, Calacia. I really appreciate it. That is so much kindness. And that leads us to our
the
match.
next mod. Not quite the head, but equally essential.
Yeah.
Dang, another one, $100 from the Fuzzy Logic W. Calazia, Purple Heart.
Thank you guys so much.
I gotta read out the emojis every time.
Hell yeah. $5 from Joshua Everett. Glad to be at the quarterly hostility episode. We're trying to make it more regular. I actually have a bunch of people who I've sent requests out to, but the problem is trying to contact influencers can be so annoying sometimes because you never know what's their platform where they check their DMs the most regularly. And some people have a business email and some people don't. And so I just shoot a message off and then I hope I hear back. And that is, but I have reached out to.
Been on here earlier, probably. Yeah. My Instagram filter caught Arden's, and I was just like going through the DMs to see what was in there. And I'm really glad that I caught it. I was like, is this a bot at first? Is this an impersonator?
No, that's so funny. I felt also super arrogant when I sent your message because I mentioned earlier that I recognized your profile picture. I was like, I know this girl. And I was like, do you know me? But what I meant was like, have we interacted before? Like, I thought maybe we met each other on Twitter first. And then I realized after, I was like, oh, she's probably ignoring it because that sounds so arrogant. Do you know me is such like a don't you know who I am sounding phrase. But thankfully, it was just
I mean, you could have, because I did know who you are. So you've got that going for you.
Well, that's fair.
Well, hey, maybe you recognized me from my spicier content.
Ayo. I was on Twitter a lot in the day, and that's where all the spicy creators go, or at least they used to. I'm not on anymore, because fuck Twitter.
Don't ask me how I got from there to here, because I don't know.
I think I read the last one.
$10 from Misha A. Vector. As an agender person, consider if you care a lot about whether people refer/see you as a woman/woman/neither. I'm assuming that meant to say woman/man/neither. If you don't care at all, explore agender potential. I agree. I don't know too much about the experience of being agender, but, just exploring your gender identity is always worth doing, even if you settle back on just being cis.
Yeah, absolutely. exploring doesn't mean you're like you can't get off the ride.
Yeah.
€5 pounds from Mystic. Wow, you know how long I've been doing this and I still can't get the currencies right. £5 from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. I am genderqueer chaos incarnate. My gender is a cosmic horror beyond mortal understanding, specifically put on this earth to piss off transphobes. I love that. I saw a meme yesterday that was like, my gender is carbs, and they were like, okay, but like, what do you mean? And they're like, my gender is pasta, and they're like, but what's in your pants? And they were like, butter. And that I identify with deeply.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. $20 from 20 Australian dollars, I think that is, from Darren McAuliffe. Olife? I don't know. When Vector opened with, I don't want to talk, I want to fight, I thought, oh god, this is a gorilla. He's a problem, but he's actually very cool. I love his outlook, knowing his skill set, and wanting to use it to help. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, let 1,000 flowers bloom, and put your efforts where you know that you're going to be most effective. 100%.
Absolutely. Not everyone needs to be a debater. Everyone wants to be a debater because you can get a social media presence with it, but trust, it is not what it's cracked up to be. $5 from Bailey Engelhart. Asked Mephi this earlier, but how can people who work evening/graveyard shifts contribute to activism?
I would say working around your schedule. If you're asleep during the times when most people are doing these things, there are still going to be people who need stuff at night, or you can do the kind of stuff that doesn't have to be done at any particular time of the day, like leaving public comments on various bills or city ordinances is always a thing that you can do at pretty much any time of the day. Also, sometimes you might need to switch around your schedule. You know, I'm lucky enough that I work a job where I can take PTO days, for example, and take days off to do things. But if you're working graveyard shift and you're not actually working during the times that people are up and about, then maybe you can time your sleep a little differently to get to places that you need to go.
Yeah. My condolences for working graveyard shift.
That's my best advice.
I did that for several years. Awful.
That's rough.
$4.99 from Smokey. I guess I read the last one, or you answered it. Great info tonight, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Actually, I never asked what your pronouns were. I defined you as a trans woman at the beginning. I guess I just kind of made those assumptions, but my bad.
I don't know. You might have read it on one of my pages because I've got them posted there. I think I'm just a she/her, basic she/her girly. I like doing woman in a way that makes transphobes mad. So I'm gonna stay in the box so I can punch my legs through the bottom and run around with like a cheap robot costume.
I love it. Awesome.
$5 from Bookworm. I'm intersex. I love all my trans cousins. We love you too.
Yeah, right back at you. And then last but not least, $10 from Ectofool. That's a funny name. A while ago, I celebrated the game. I work on oh yes, you told us, winning a Hugo Award in a super chat, and Arden asked out loud what it was called. Late reply, the game is Caves of Cud, or Cood. Root for us at the Game Awards. Let me Google that shit so I can.
Ectofool? I'm not getting that one.
I think it's like act a fool. Like the phrase. Caves of Cud. Okay, cool. Yeah, I found it. It's on Steam. Right on. Neato. Well, thank you guys. Another one came in from...
Yep.
There we go.
And I get to read this one. $5 from Melatonin Ale. Having lived in both cities, San Antonio is greater than Austin, just not downtown. Downtown San Antonio is not great. Thanks for the show. Well, I don't know. I kind of like downtown a little bit, you know, like we're a little basic, but we've got the spirit, you know.
I don't like downtown in any city, but that's just about parking.
Yeah, I hate parking downtown. That is the worst. You know, I'll say Austin has the bigger tech bro problem. You know, when I go up to Austin, I see a lot more Cybertrucks.
Okay, Actually, we live relatively close to a Tesla factory, so I see them all the time. And also, they are the most arrogant drivers in our neighborhood. And a new building just went up in our housing development where we live. And I was really excited. It looked like it was going to be, from the plans we saw, like an outlet kind of mall. And we have a business that we run on the side. And I was like, oh my God, that could be so cool. We could have a store. And then they finished it, and it's starting to look... It's not done yet, but they've got all the walls up. It's starting to look exactly like the data center is nearby. And I'm like, I swear to God, if this is a corporate office or a data center, I'm going to flip the fuck out. I would be so mad. Anyway.
I hit a point to roll down my window every time I see a Cybertruck to flip them off. You know,
I don't roll down my window,
be putting myself in danger, but yeah, are the worst.
We also point
I
and
remember
laugh.
I got stuck in traffic a little while ago. I got stuck in traffic, and I ended up passing and flipping off the same Cybertruck 3 times, and that was a really great day.
You're like, I know you saw it that time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No doubt.
Well, I have your links in the description. I have your Instagram and your TikTok in the description anyway. Those are the ones YouTubers are probably safe on.
I need to actually post on my YouTube. I technically have a YouTube, but it's I haven't posted. Keep forgetting to mirror my content over there, so... I need to beef that thing up, but, you know, I am doing more TikTok lives lately and getting some debates in there, and I will probably be posting those to YouTube in the near future, so
right on.
Folks can keep an eye out for that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mephi. We appreciate you. Definitely go check out all of her links and stuff. It was great to have you, and
I had a wonderful time being here. It's it's interesting to be on this side of the call.
Right,
The show. You know? I called into TACIS a few times a few years ago, and I guess you never know what happens in the future.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider supporting us over on Patreon. Patreon.com/calltheline gets you your name in the description. At certain tiers, you get access to our monthly LineCon Online Live mini lecture series. You get access to ad-free episodes of the podcast, our monthly Zoom Q&As, lots of good stuff there. So please consider supporting. It keeps the lights on and lets us keep doing awesome shows like this. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you Sunday next on the Sunday show.